Welcome to my new furniture series. So when I first saw this couch, it was a total disaster. Deep pet scratches, blue paint splatters, and years of stains and neglect had left this leather dried out, cracked, and lifeless. Most people would have trashed it, but I wanted to show you guys that quality leather can be saved. So watch as I take it from this to this in my new furniture series for leather. I'll show you how I remove the paint, fix the scratches, erase the stains, and bring this leather couch back to life. Let's get to it. Hey Leather Honey community, my name is Evan and it's my goal to share the skills and tools needed to love your leather. Feel free to check out my video library of leather care tutorials over on the Evumies YouTube channel. So when searching for some leather furniture to restore, I came across this listing on OfferUp for a free leather couch. And did I mention that this poly and bark couch was more than $1,600? The owner said that this couch needed a good wipe down and that there were watermarks and paint from a poorly executed DIY project. Additionally, there were cat scratches from their kittens and that it needed to be gone today. And to be completely honest, I didn't know if the couch was actually salvageable. I just knew that it looked like it had potential from the photos. I had done smaller jobs like cat scratches on leather shoes and paint removal, but nothing this big of a scale. This turned out to be the biggest leather challenge we've ever taken on. So this is our journey, showcasing the failures and successes through this entire process. So because I don't know everything that happened to this couch, I wanted to make sure that it was clean and sanitized. The owner noted that after it was damaged, it then became the kids' couch, which definitely shows. So it was important to clean from the inside out. I'll be using my irreplaceable lily brush to remove any pet hair that's weaved itself into the fibers, as well as any debris. I haven't yet found anything that removes pet hair better than this, and I use it on our furniture, clothes, and so much more. And as you guys can see, it's doing a great job of removing pretty much everything. By the way, I will be leaving everything I use in this video in the description below, so don't forget to check it out. However, if you don't have a lily brush, the concept is the same. You guys can use something like rubber gloves to create friction against the fabric and pull hairs away, just maybe less effectively. Once I remove the hairs, I use my Dyson vacuum to clean up any of that lifted debris. And if you don't have a vacuum, I also found that using a lint roller can do a good job as well. I will say, in going through this and cleaning it out, there were quite a few things hiding in the couch, so make sure you guys are thorough. To be honest, there were a few things that were a bit gross, but manageable, so I made sure to take the appropriate precautions to remove and sanitize as necessary. I simply used some disposable gloves to peel off this nasty band-aid, and then I followed up with some disinfectant spray from Lysol to clean the fabric and disinfect the entire area. For any hairs or debris that didn't come out with the initial pass, my A-type personality would not let me leave them in there, so I used tweezers to remove every single one. There was even gum stuck on the side of the leather, so I gently scraped that off as well. Now that all of the debris was removed, I went ahead and sanitized the interior area of fabric. I just made sure to be very thorough and let it stay on the fabric for at least 10 minutes. Since Lysol is not made for leather and will damage it, I'll be using Amazon's #1 leather care, Leather Honey, who is kindly sponsoring this video. And as you guys can see, this couch is already looking so much better. Let me ask you this, when was the last time you cleaned the inside of your couch? Drop a comment below. Alright guys, now if the fabric on your couch has a lot of pilling, I wanted to take a quick moment and highly suggest getting my favorite fabric shaver on the market. And if this is your first time being introduced to one, it is a life changer. It's great for getting pills off of clothing from washing or normal use like sweaters or athletic wear, but it's also great for high traffic areas on your couch or ottomans as well. I've tried more than 6 to 7 on the market, but this one by Buterol is literally the best one that I've tried yet, so give it a try. I'll leave it in the description below. And although this couch didn't have too many pills, I did want to mention it for those of you who may need it. Now on to cleaning. Like I said earlier, we'll be partnering with Amazon's #1 leather care, Leather Honey, to tackle the dirt, grime, and years of buildup on this poly and bark leather couch. It's always best to spot test any leather care products in a hidden area to prevent any unexpected results, so make sure to let it fully dry and then check the area. Once you know it's safe, you're good to go. Specifically, I've chosen Leather Honey's UV protectant cleaner because furniture often fades when situated near a window, so this will provide extra protection against the sun's rays. I also wanted to note that Leather Honey's cleaner is specially formulated to not leave any watermarks, and even though the leather is darkening, it will dry lighter as we saw with the initial spot test. So when I was researching for this polyambar couch restoration video, I had to really understand what kind of leather I was working with in order to properly clean, condition, and even fix the damage on it. That's why I spent so much time researching key differences between full aniline leather, semi-aniline, and pigmented leather, and it completely changed how I approached this project. So let me explain. So the beauty with a full aniline leather is it's super soft and natural looking because it's colored all the way through with a transparent dye, but that also means it has no protective coating, so it can more easily soak up stains and darken with oils and water. It looks amazing, but you can't get anything like it if you have a pigmented leather. It's really unprotected, so you do have to weigh the pros and cons. Personally, I prefer a full aniline leather because it literally displays the leather at its finest, being completely natural. When it comes to watermarks, there's a few things that I wanted to share, and this doesn't necessarily work for all stains, but if the marks have been caused by water, this will most likely do the trick. Ironically, the way to remove watermarks is actually with water or any gentle cleaner that doesn't have any minerals. It's important to know how watermarks form so that you can understand the process to actually remove them. So watermarks on leather form when water pools in one specific area, trapping dirt and debris as it dries. And this actually creates a visible stain or dark spot. So to fix it, we simply use more water. So all I did was lightly dampen the area to spread the moisture evenly, allowing it to dry uniformly and blend in with the rest of the leather. Now for a drop of paint or thicker paint instead of a brush stroke of paint, it's actually easier to remove since there was more paint to grab onto. I easily removed it by taking the smooth rounded edge of a paper clip and lifted up the paint, though it didn't work for everything. So if you drop paint onto your leather, depending on the type of leather you have, it might actually be better for you to let it dry and then remove it rather than smear it all around and let it soak into the leather. It just depends. Next, we have paint removal. This was literally the toughest job that I had with this couch because it dried like glue on the surface of the leather, which made it really extremely difficult to remove without damaging the leather. And to be completely honest, some of the areas of the leather were minimally damaged due to the fact that I had to use more harsh methods in order to actually try to remove that paint, but it's better than leaving the dark paint on there in my opinion. Now I did want to note that for this job it seemed pretty difficult for me to remove the paint, so I may have pushed a little too hard when trying to remove it, which left somewhat of a dent in those specific areas, but I was able to fix that later down the line as you'll see shortly. But I would highly recommend not pushing as hard as I did if you can help it. Honestly, the friction is what helped me remove the paint in the end, so maybe pushing with more pressure is inevitable. Something I also tried was using friction to lift up the paint. It didn't work on every spot, but it was worth a shot. I just used the back of my rubber gloves to create enough friction to try and lift up the paint, and I'll say it did a pretty good job despite being somewhat unconventional. I also tried using a rubber eraser as well, and it was about the same. Unfortunately, using any type of paint stripper or rubbing alcohol is going to remove the top layer of coating on your leather and potentially any pigment or dye from the leather, so you'll want to be very careful. And unfortunately, in order for me to remove the entire area of paint, I had to both rub off the paint as well as wipe it off with rubbing alcohol. And as I mentioned earlier, this is also what removed that top layer of the original dye. So I knew going forward I had to pivot a little bit, but keep watching so you can see how I took care of it afterwards. Moving back to full aniline leather versus pigmented leather. Pigmented leather, on the other hand, has a protective coating on the top like paint, which makes it way more resistant to stains and scratches, of course, and you can be a little bit more aggressive with cleaning because the surface is pretty much sealed. Pigmented leather is more like leather with a protective colored layer. It's been treated with pigments and a more robust coating to make it look uniform and definitely last longer, but it's not as nice in my opinion. It's a little less sensitive to stains and marks, but it also doesn't have that same natural feel that you get with a full aniline leather. Now, semi-aniline leather sits right in between full aniline and pigmented leather. It's still dyed all the way through like full aniline, so you get that rich natural look, but it also has a very light protective coating. And this thin layer of pigment helps even out the color a little and adds some resistance to stains and wear. That is without completely covering up the natural grain and feel of the leather. So it's a great balance between the softness and durability, making it a really popular choice for furniture that still feels luxurious but can handle everyday use better than a full aniline. And as you guys can see, I am being pretty unconventional here as I use the sharp edge of a paper clip to gently lift off the paint. And I will note it is scratching the surface a little bit, but it really was one of the best things I found to get the paint off quickly, since I will be resurfacing the top layer a little bit later on. I did finish up with some rubbing alcohol on a microfiber cloth, which seemed to get most of the paint off. Just make sure when you guys do it to switch the area of cloth you're using as you go, so you're not rubbing back in the paint. Now, if you guys have any stitches that have come undone on your leather, there's a few things that might be helpful. First of all, if it's just one stitch that came out, you may be able to push it back with a pin or a paper clip just like this. For the most part, it should stop it from continually unraveling, but for things like frayed threads, I always revert to flame sealing them with a lighter. This is normal to seal threads in leather crafting, so it will again keep it from unraveling. Any burnt pieces you can just scrape off. Now onto deep stain removal. What I'm about to do next is not suggested for normal care. It was just me honestly experimenting with various techniques in order to try to remove those deep stains on the main cushions of this couch. The previous owner did note that these stains were made by water, so I figured that using the same trick would remove them or at least make them better, and it did, so I'm grateful that it worked. However, it wasn't perfect, so I had to move to a different method. But first of all, because the area of leather was so big, I decided to use Leather Honey's concentrated formula, and I used warm water with the appropriate amount of concentrate, and this enabled me to remove that top layer of oils and waxes so that I could get the stains in the couch cushions. And as you guys can see, it was working really well, but let me know in the comments below why this may be happening. I'm not sure. I wasn't fully sure what happened, but at first it looked like it was taking all of the stains out, but then as it dried, they all kind of just came back. So I decided to take a more invasive route and try to vacuum out any of the water stains using my Bissell Spot Clean vacuum. I wanted to suck out any of the moisture along with the stains so that I didn't leave my leather soaking wet, as I always try to suggest on my channel, and this definitely got a lot of the stains out. However, it did not remove all of the stains, unfortunately, but it did, like I said, get a lot out, so I was grateful. I did want to note that removing a lot of these surface stains with Leather Honey made the next part of this furniture series so much easier, so make sure you guys stick around and watch some of the next videos. Overall, this project has really been so worth it because we literally got this couch for free and it was originally over $1,600. We put quite a bit of sweat equity into this couch, but honestly, it was all worth it in our opinion. The last thing I did want to mention is that the methods that we used in this couch restoration are not necessarily what you guys should do for your similar couches. I'm just crazy and I wanted to try various techniques and experiment to see what would and wouldn't work. Again, I got it for free, so I wasn't going to lose anything. This is really just our journey in restoring this really heavily soiled couch, and I don't necessarily suggest for you to do the same, but you're more than welcome to try whatever you want at your own risk. This is just what worked for us. So like I said, I was able to get a lot out from the couch, but to be honest, some of this was actually the leather dye, but a lot of it was the stains as well. So make sure you guys check out the next video to see how it turned out, as well as how we'll be repairing those cat scratches, rejuvenating the down-filled leather pillows, and much more. See you guys over there.